Okay. So we project any we won't go on the project. One small topic we will see, which is not related to again the project. So ng container and ng template. Okay. So we just create. Okay. So like we have ngif and ng for directive. Okay. Let's try to use those first. Ngif and ng for it is over here. And let's say over here we will use ul and li. On li we will use ng for. So star ng for is equal to let city of our variable name of the array, that is city list. Okay. And over here we will have a span inside li. I'm taking a span. Inside span I will print the city. Okay. So here you can see we are able to print the city. But let's say on this span you need to add a condition also. Some condition. It can be anything. Okay. Some condition you need to add on the span. So inside or li, we don't want to, it means the condition is like, let's say in li, in this city, one city is empty. Okay. This is also empty and this is also empty. So we need, if we do like this, so currently you can see we are getting printed empty also. But even those element is not empty, it should not get printed that li. So we want to add a condition. This li should not get printed if the value is empty. So let's try to, if we try to add this ng for over here, and if we want one more condition, if star ng if equal to if city not equal to empty. Okay. So see, we are not able to add ngif and ngfor on the same element. We will get the error saying cannot have multiple template binding on one element. Only use only attribute mix means you cannot use two structural directive on a one element. Means ng4 and ngif we cannot use on a one element. Okay. Got it? So we cannot use two structural directive on a single element. But let's say we have to do it. So instead of doing or instead of adding a ng on the same element, what we can do, we can introduce one more extra element that will be ng container. ng container. Now inside UL and LI, we cannot create any more element. Like we cannot have a div or section or anything we cannot create, right? But we can create ng container. So ng container is kind of an imaginary element. Okay. ng container is kind of an imaginary element, which you won't be able to see. But for the programming, you can use that. Okay. So now this ng for will go on this ng container, and in this ng container li will move. Now on the li we will use our star ngif. Now city not equal to empty. Fine. So see, other two element didn't get printed which were empty. So we cannot use ng for and ng on the same element. So to work around that, we can use ng container. So ng container is the imaginary div which won't render on the UI. See, if I inspect over here, there is no ng container. See, in UL directly li is there. Means this ng container you can see, but this is commented. Okay. So ng container you have written over here, but that ng container you are not able to see it over here. Understood? It's a imaginary div or the virtual div, you can say virtual kind of HTML element you have, but you cannot actually see that in the inspect. That is just for our two programming. Understood? ng container.
Yes, sir.
So again, like previously we used to use so much because we had this problem with ng for an ng. But now in case of control flow statement, we don't have that problem that at the rate if and at the rate because we don't write at the rate if and at the rate for on the element. We use it over here directly, right? So that this problem is not there in control flow statement. But in ng for an ng, we used to have that problem. Okay. This is one way. Now in table, where is the table? At the bottom also we have the table now. This student list is there at the end. Okay. This table. Now what I need to do, let's say consider you are making an API call. We must be making an API call now somewhere. Get API call. Hmm. Let's use this. So in get API component on the page load, we are making this API call. So what I need to do, obviously API call I'm making. So to get the data from the API, it is going to take some time, at least 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. Sometime it will take because based on your internet speed and based on the server speed, it will get that data that much quicker. Correct? So till the API call is in progress, we have not got the data. We have to show the loader inside this table T body. And once we get the data, then we will show the TR. Okay. So the bootstrap loader we will use progress bar or spinner. Okay. This loader we will use. Means till the time our API call is in progress, we have not got the response. Our API call is in progress, right? Till that we have to show the loader. Once we got the data, we need to hide the loader and then we have to show the table data. Okay, that is our task. So to do that, now here we can use ng container or at the rate if also we can use at the rate if. Or first we need to create a variable because we need a condition when we have to show, sorry, not here now. Get API. So how we will decide now? We have got the data or not. So what we can do, we will create a variable. So variable name will be is loader colon boolean is equal to by default I'm making it true. Okay. And once we receive the API call data, then I'm making it false. So inside the subscribe, once I get the data, then I'm making that variable false. So what I did, I have created a variable initialized with true value. And once we get the API call data, then I'm making it false. So you can understand like once the data is there, means how you will understand that data is there or not, or API call is success or not. So if this variable is true, we will make sure like API call is in progress because once we receive the API call response, then we are making it false. So this variable will decide like do we have to show the loader or not. So this variable we will use. So over here at the Directive equal to true ng container, and here we will have our HTML code for the loader. Again, sorry, tr, because obviously in t-body we need to take tr, td. How many tds we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So call span we need to add because one td should take that much width, 6. And then inside that we will put it this. Okay. Then one more ng container we will need. We have this if condition. If this loader is true, this piece of code will execute. And then we will need at the rate else. And at the rate else, we will have this for loop. See, mean once what will happen? If this variable value is true, this code will execute. And once this variable get false, this code will execute. Okay, let's try. Post API, get API. See, loader is there. And once we receive the API call data, our table is visible. Understood? So wherever condition based HTML code you have to load sometimes this, sometimes that, and you don't want some extra div, right? While designing the page, you cannot use a div because so many time our UI is like that or CSS structure is like that. If you add a div, it might disturb your UI design also. So you sometimes you cannot use a div also. So in that scenario, you can go for a ng container also. Clear? Ng container.
Yes.
So not just like ng for an ng. You can use ng container like this also. Understood? Clear all?
Yes.
Just a minute. Okay. So just like ng container, one more similar kind of thing is ng template. Okay. So now we will see the ng template. Now, ng template is also kind of a imaginary, what we can say, it's not a, it's a imaginary, but we just like ng container gets directly rendered, but ng template cannot render itself. So we have to add, what do we say? We have to render ng template inside some another div. Okay. So the possible first example will be, now what I will do, I will create a variable, or let's say use this variable is loader. So what I can say over here, we will add a p tag and we will use ng if. Like with control flow statement, we have at the rate if and at the rate else. Just like that, in ng-if also we have else. Okay, so that we are going to see now. So star if this variable is true, we will say loader visible. Okay. So now in control flow statement, if we write the at the rate if, we immediately have at the rate else also. Just like that, in ng-if also we have else. So if this variable is true, this HTML will load. Okay. Or else also is there. Okay. So else. Wait. How does it write? If this
And a semicolon after that everything else.
semicolon na,
Yeah.
else. But no, it's why it is not coming.
So after that double quotes you can use sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No, it's giving
Yes,
error.
correct only.
Let's try to create ng template first. Hash template. Okay. See, now this ng template, we have created ng template, and inside that ng template, we have h3. Okay. For the time, let's comment this. Okay. So before call 6, what do we have? This ng template. And inside ng template, we have h3 with loader. Let's add a color also. Text danger. Let's see if it gets printed or not. This is without any condition. But if you see over here, we don't have that element present. Okay, let's try to inspect also. So before this call 6, see, we don't have anything. Here, if you see, we have ng-template and h3 is also there. But if you see, check the HTML, we are not able to see the h3. So whenever you write some HTML code inside ng-template, this won't render itself. This ng-template, it's kind of a block of HTML code. Whenever we have to render the content inside the template, we have to render it into some another div, any another HTML. We have to inject this ng template to some another div. So first use case is with ng. Now see. So what we did over here, we have on this paragraph, we are writing the condition like if this loader variable is true, this whatever the content we have in this p tag, it will render. But if this condition gets false, so it will render this template. See, loader template. Okay. So what is this? Hash. What do we call this?
Template
Temp-
reference variable.
Template reference variable. So by using this is kind of a this is kind of a way we are accessing this template. So we provided a reference variable to this template, and if this condition get false, so this templates get rendered over here. Okay. So see now. Let's make the internet speed slow. Post API. Okay. See now, once I go back, see loader visible and then loader hidden. Got it? So if this condition is true, this piece of code will execute or this template will execute. Just like with @ if and @else was there now, similar to like that, we can write the same thing in ngif also. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Clear? ng-template. ng-template won't render itself. We have to render ng-template. Okay. Now, where was the form? Yeah. Post API. Car. Okay, car. See, this example is little bit complex, but this gets used most of the time. Now consider you are working on a project. In every project, we have some proper theme combination and color combination and some UI structure also. Means when we work on a project, if you are working on, there are some rules whenever we work on the project. Like whenever you are creating a form, let's say you have a label. Inside label, after the or before the label, you will have some icon also. Class, pa, pa, hyphen user, right? Then we will have one more span for showing the tooltip also. Okay, tooltip we show over here. The data or something, no? No. How do you show the tooltip in normal HTML? What's the property? Tooltip or data title. By using title we show. Yeah. Location name. Provide. Hmm, I think we don't have.
So actually, you can see FA, right?
Hmm. Let me get the font or some CDN. This we will put it into our index.html. Okay. format. So consider key all your what are the number of forms you have in your application. Everywhere your structure should be like this. Means whenever you have a form and above the text box you need to show the label. You should have an icon. You should have a label. You should have a span with some tooltip and then your label. So everywhere this kind of structure should be there. Here also. Now here location code. Okay. Just like that over here also. Here. Right? Everywhere you need a structure like this. Now this piece of code, it's getting repeated or no? Is it getting repeated? Label. Then we have icon and then again we have span and the tooltip. Code is getting repeated. What can we do for this now?
You can use
Reusable
reusable things.
Hmm?
Reusable things you have to make it.
We can
Use reusable things.
reusable component.
reusable component we can create, right? But this piece of code is very simple. Just the HTML is there and there is no .ts code also. So it's because when you create a component, obviously at least .ts file will be there, code will be there. So many things happens whenever we create the component. So instead of creating the component, we can create something in this component only. Instead of creating a reusable component, we can store this reusable HTML code into a ng template. Okay. So I'm creating ng. Just a minute. Ng template. Over here. So now we have ng template here. We will pass the value hash. What we will say label template. Okay. Now over here in this template we will load over here. Now instead of using this whole structure, we will use ng container over here. Okay. And inside this ng container, we can load this ng template. How do we now this ng template we have to load over here by using star ng template. Why it's not coming? We need to import that ng template outlet. Okay. We have to import ng template outlet. Then star ng template outlet is equal to our template name. So see, I'm just copying this everywhere. Wherever we have this reusable repeated code, I'm copying it. Save. See, location here, everywhere we got it, right? But now instead of, what do we say? Again, structure got changed. Instead of showing these icons over here, this icon will go after this. Info. Normally for tooltip, we use info. Okay. So this is your icon, text, and then label for tooltip. So this HTML is not repeating now because this is coming from your ng template, but same thing is there. For every label, we should see some different, right? Now this is same thing. It is visible in everywhere. So now we have to make it reusable. So we have a template and this template we are injecting inside the ng container. First, this is clear because ng template cannot render itself. We have to inject it to some another div. So in ng container also, we can inject our ng template by using star ng template outlet. Means we are saying ki in this ng container, we have to use this template. Okay. But now while using this template, we can pass the data also. Getting it? While using this template in the ng container, we can pass the data also. Now we have to pass the data. So over here in this ng container, I'm using this ng template. So while using this ng template, I can pass the data also. Okay. So semicolon, then we have context colon curly bracket, and inside the context we have to pass. We will pass with variable or implicit something we say dollar implicit. Here we will say now how what data we need. This call icon, your label, and this tooltip. Three data we need to send. So we will send the object over here. Okay. So we will say icon, and here we will say pa user. Then we need label also. Label text. What was that? Brand. Then we need tooltip also. Text. Enter. Brand name. Okay. So now wherever I'm using the ng template, while loading the template to this template, I'm passing some data like this. Okay. So over here also and over here also. Now we will change the data. Year, model. Instead of user, let's say car, card, something different icon I'm passing. Okay. So now see, in this ng container, we are loading the ng template. But while loading ng template in the context, I'm passing some data. Now, whatever the data we have passed, that we can receive over here in let variable. After this, let, what we will say, template data. Anything you can create, any variable you can create over here. ATE. Okay. Now over here, instead of this property binding, I will use this dot, what's the class name? Icon. Icon over here. Then over here, instead of static text, I will use interpolation dot, what's the property name? Label text. And over here, tooltip also again property binding. Template data dot tooltip text. And this icon will be static because for info, for tooltip, just info only. See now. Here we got brand, model, and the year. And if you hover on that, see. Here also we are getting an year name, brand name, model name. So now this is reusable. Means wherever you need to load this structure, right? So what you will do, because this code was getting repeated, so we put it inside the ng template. And now while loading this ng template inside the ng container, we are passing some data. So that data we can catch it like this. And that data, this object, whole object, we will get it over here. And that we can use it over here wherever we want to make the things dynamic. So now your code is reusable. Understood? So ng template, we can load it inside the ng container. While loading the ng container, we can pass some data also. And we can make content dynamic inside the ng template also, like this. Normally in the project, we have this because when we work on the project, so many label key means big form we have. So how do we do that? So like this. So instead of repeating that code again and again, we use like this. Clear? So in project, normally we used to see that this is not just the normal example in the project only. Again, like if your project is like that, your TL is also more into Angular. So then he will ask you to do like this instead of re, uh, reiterating that UI again and again. Got it?
तो ये रिएक्टिव फॉर्म में भी यूज कर सकते हैं?
रिएक्टिव फॉर्म में इसका कुछ भी लेना देना नहीं है, राइट? ये सिर्फ HTML का कोड है। टेक्स्ट बॉक्स नहीं डाल सकते हो यहाँ पे। वी कैन नॉट यूज टेक्स्ट बॉक्स इनसाइड दैट because reactive form needs to be binded exactly instead of means we cannot pass a form controller name over here and then bind it. We can, but again it will be complicated. Just consider ki we have some HTML code which doesn't have ng model or reactive form, just a normal span label or something. Okay, so that we can wrap up inside the ng template. Okay, means let's say this is ng reactive or template form. This is over here, na? Label or this doesn't has to do anything with the reactive or the template, correct?
Yes.
Right, so it doesn't matter like this is a reactive form or a template form, because here we are not using anything. This is just a label span. This code was getting repeated, so we moved it to the ng template. Okay, no relation with the template or the reactive. Wait, my meeting will stop. Let me start another one. Join again. So first of all, what is directive? What is directive?
Change the appearance and behavior.
Hmm? What is directive? What will be the definition of directive? Let's say if we talk about ng for router outlet, router link, these are nothing but directive. What they do, it provide additional functionality to your HTML. In case of ng, if your element will render or not render based on the condition. In case of ng for, it help us to create dynamic element. In case of ng class, it help us to add dynamic class. In case of ng style, it will help us to add dynamically ng style. In case of router outlet, it helps us to load the activated route component, right? So when we use directive on a particular element, right, it adds some extra behavior to your existing element or component instance, right? That's the definition of directive. It can help you to extend your behavior of normal HTML, right? So these are the default directive. Like that, we can create our custom directive also. Okay, so we can create a custom directive. So I have created a directive folder. Let's open a terminal. So ng generate directive. Let's say very basic example. I'm going with highlight. Enter. Okay. So when we create a directive, we get again two files, and this is how your directive look like. Like in case of ng, if ng for we have a name, right? Star ng for ng class we write. Just like that, our directive name is app highlight. Okay. Now what I need to do, whenever, let's say over here, this location code, once user hover mouse on this, we need to highlight this with some different color. And once user move away, again, we need to make it some different color. That is nothing but the highlight directive. Okay. But this we can do with CSS also, but same thing I'm explaining with the code. Okay. With that hover pseudo classes, we can do that also in CSS. Now, this directive, let's say we want to add this directive on this particular element. Let's say location code. On this label, I need to add it. So we cannot use it directly because it's a directive. Again, just like we have created a pipe, and to use that pipe, we need to import it. Just like that, this directive also we need to import. Highlight directive. This one. Okay. So we imported it, then we use it on the HTML. Now let me try the console. Inside constructor, console.log highlight executed. See, we imported the directive in our .ts. Then we have added the directive on this label, and in the directive in the constructor, I have printed the console. Now see. Let's inspect. Reactive. Let's go over cars. See, app highlight executed means our constructor got executed. Constructor got executed means our directive got executed. Correct? Because we have used directive only once on the HTML. Let's say this car master, this highlight directive, again I'm adding on the location code also. Now in my component, 2 times I'm using the same directive. So you will be able to see 1 time and 2 time. Understood? So how you in your component, how many times you are using the directive, that many time your directive is going to execute. So constructor got executed 2 times. That's why we have two console. Clear? Like ngif also, in one component we can use more than once, na? Just like that, this is the directive which you have created. So you can use also multiple time. Okay. Now, whatever the element, like this label or this label, right? You have to get the access of this element. And then you will add a dynamic style to that. So to get the access of the element in Angular, we have in view child, what was the data type we used to give to the element access? In view child also we used to get the element access, correct? What was the data type over there in view child? When we used to create the view child, what was the data type we used to give? In case of normal HTML, we provided hash in the template. And when we used to create the view child, what is the data type we used to give to store the element access? What was the data type in view child? Guys, what was the data type? Element reference in the view child. Try to remember. We have already seen the view child, right? In the model pop-up. So we used to add the template reference variable. And when we use the view child, at the rate view child, your template reference variable view child name colon element ref. Means the in view child, you are getting the reference of that element. Na? So that same thing. But here we have to create it as a service. Private element ref data type element reference. Okay. Now here you will get the reference of that HTML element. Wherever you are using this directive, means this label, you will get the reference of this element. Okay. Now here this dot element ref dot native element dot style dot what do you say color is equal to red. Now what I have done, wherever I'm adding this directive, on that element I'm adding a dynamic color red. So see now what happens. On this two element I have added the directive, so see color got red. If you check the parent HTML, here we didn't add some class or some style also, but we have added a directive. So whenever we render this directive on this particular element, when the directive execute, in element ref, we will get the reference of the element where our directive is applied. Means the host element. We have added this directive on this label. So we will get a reference of that element over here on this label. And I'm adding a dynamic color to that label. So that's why you are able to see the color over here. But this is by hard code only you can see, because in the constructor only on the load only we have added it. But instead of adding this on the load, what I need to do, once user hover mouse on this, then only I need to add. So now here comes the events, host listener. See, for this directive, label is the host, because on this label we are adding a directive. So for this directive, this become host. Okay. So once you hover the mouse on this label, that is nothing but event. So we have to write the event on that host. So that by using the host listener. Okay. So at the rate host listener. Then you have to provide the event name. See, what does host listener need? Event name. That it will be mouse over, and then you need the function on mouse over. Okay, and this same line we will put it inside the function. Means instead of loading on the page load, we are doing it. If this event happen, then we will run this function. Now this function, we have created this function, and above this function we have added some host listener. Now see how it behaves. By default, we don't have it. Okay. See, once I hover, then that color got added. See over here also. Getting it? So this function is getting executed whenever we have an event that is mouse over on this parent element. Means wherever you have added this host, whenever we have a mouse over on this element, our this function will execute. So see, this function we didn't call it anywhere, but still this function is executed. Let's print console.log also so that you can understand. On mouse over I'm printing. Okay. Console. See, it got printed. If I hover on that again, see, whenever I'm getting hover on that, my function is getting called. See, counter is increasing. So if wherever we have added this directive on the component, if we have this event, what is the event? Mouse over. So this function will event. If on the host this event get trigger, this function will execute. Now just like this, one more event on mouse out. Again host listener. Now event will be mouse live. Okay. Then we need another function on mouse left. Okay. And here what we will do again, we will change it to black. Okay. Let's print the console also. See now. Okay. If I hover mouse over function got executed and we got the red color also. If I move the mouse, see, mouse left function got called. And again, we added the black color. Getting it? So this is something our own functionality we have added on the directive. So if user hover mouse on this element, we are adding some dynamic color to that element. And on removing also, once mouse left on that element, we are again removing some color and adding different color. So this is our own functionality we have added. Our own set of rules we have added on that particular element. So whenever we create a custom directive, again, two things we need. Reference of the element and this host listener also. The use of host listener is like wherever we have added this directive, and on that element, the host element, wherever we have added that directive, the host element, if we have to write some code on the event happening on that host element, we have to use host listener. Whenever this event will trigger on the element, host element, this function will trigger. Let's try click also. Okay. Let's say if you want to write the click event. Click. Okay. On element click. Here I will just show the alert box. You clicked element. See. Now if I click, see your alert box clear. Understood? So all the event happening on that element, you can write a code over here. Understood? I know it will be so much to process if you are seeing for the first time. But just like ng, if ng for ng class, ng style. So see, this is similar to ng style. In ng style, we used to add a dynamic CSS. This is also we are adding dynamic CSS, but on hover and on mouse click, we are adding dynamic CSS. Right? ng style, what's the purpose of ng style? To add a dynamic CSS. But there was no any condition. We used to pass the data coming from a variable. But this is one step ahead. We are adding a dynamic CSS. But when once user mouse over on that element and once user mouse leave, that is the condition. Understood? So just like ng style, this is our own directive which is adding dynamic style. But when according to the event, whenever user use mouse on that element, then only we are adding. Clear? This is very basic example of your custom directive. Very famous one and very easy one also. Again, there are so many things we can create, but just to start with, this is the first example. Clear everyone? This is your directive name and this you will add it over here on the element.
सर वो जो डायरेक्टिव नेम हमने दिया है उसके अगेंस्ट जो भी फंक्शन है वो सारे रेंडर होंगे क्या? जैसे माउस और क्लिक एंड
नहीं, ये
माउस
इवेंट जब ट्रिगर होगा, ये देखो हमने क्या किया,
ओके
ये डायरेक्टिव क्रिएट किया। अब ये फंक्शन के ऊपर क्या लिखा हमने, होस्ट लिस्नर। और होस्ट लिस्नर में इवेंट कौन सा बताया, माउस ओवर। तो जब भी ये लेबल पे माउस ओवर होगा तब मेरा ये इवेंट फंक्शन हो।
दैट सेम एक्शन
हाँ
सेम एक्शन जैसे माउस फोर होगा तभी ये कॉल होगा।
हाँ, जब भी
ये
मेरा इवेंट
हाँ
माउस ओवर एक्शन होगा ये मेरा इवेंट ट्रिगर होगा। क्लिक करूंगा ये इवेंट ट्रिगर होगा। ओके, तो ये डायरेक्टिव अपने जहां जहां पे आपने लिखा है, जहां जहां पे यूज किया है, ये एलिमेंट पे जब जब वो इवेंट होंगे, एक्शन होंगे, तब तक मेरे ये इवेंट ट्रिगर होंगे। ओके, होस्ट लिसनर ये क्या कर रहा है, होस्ट को लिसन कर रहा है। होस्ट को लिसन करते वक्त अगर उसको क्लिक इवेंट मिला तो ये इवेंट ट्रिगर करेगा। माउस लीव किया तो ये इवेंट ट्रिगर करेगा। माउस ओवर किया तो ये इवेंट ट्रिगर करेगा। होस्ट लिसनर ये हमेशा होस्ट के इवेंट को लिसन करते रहेगा और उसको इवेंट टाइप अगर ये है तो इवेंट एग्जीक्यूट कर देगा। अंडरस्टूड?
यस सर
क्लियर ऑल? एनीवन हैविंग एनी क्वेश्चन? दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर इंटरव्यू. What is the directive? How do we create a directive? How do we write a host listener? How do we change the element? How do we get the access of the element? By using element reference. Understood? Okay, tomorrow again we will see some more example of this, because with just one example you won't be able to understand everything. Tomorrow again we will see. But today at least just try to create this highlight at least. Okay? Anyone having any question? Okay, fine. Thank you all. Let's connect tomorrow. One more thing. For interview preparation, can we start connecting in the evening? Like JavaScript
Sure,
concept,
sure.
regular again questions, explanation. So 9 p.m. is okay for everyone. Just half an hour every day we will connect.
Yes.
Everyone okay at 9 p.m.?
9 p.m.
Yeah. Or 8:30. Just
Yeah.
half hour, because 7:30 someone might have the scrum call. So by at least by 8:30 everyone will be free.
9 p.m.
Everyone is okay with 9 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine then. Let's connect. From today only we will start connecting. Okay. So today also 9 p.m.
सर ये लिंक डाउनलोड,
सॉरी,
ये यूट्यूब का लिंक से हम डाउनलोड नहीं कर पा रहे, सो हमारे
इनके
रिकॉर्डेड।
कैसे करते? नहीं, वो डिलीट नहीं होगा, वो वैसे ही रहने दो, क्योंकि मेरा नहीं कि जूम का एक्सपायर हुआ है, तो अभी वो मैं परचेस करूंगा 1-2 दिन में। उसको क्रेडिट कार्ड ही चाहिए क्या डेबिट कार्ड चाहिए, समझ में नहीं आ रहा। ओके, जस्ट फॉर सम सेशन वो रिकॉर्डिंग वैसे ही रहेगी, डाउनलोड करने की जरूरत नहीं है। ओके, फाइन, लेट्स कनेक्ट टुडे इन द इवनिंग।